move on to our second panel for the day, AI driving autonomous networks of the future. Along with Sir Ian, we have here with us Mr. Vikas Agarwal, who is the Solutions Head, Network Solution and Services, Tata Consultancy Services. Mr. MJ Prashant, Global AI Accelerator, Ericsson. Mr. Digvijay Sharma, Senior Director, Account Management, CNI India. We have Mr. J.R. Dew, VP Marketing Development, Infiniera. And we have Mr. Abhijit Atle, who will be the moderator for the session. He's partner, Digital Solution Strategy and Insights, KPMG India. We are delighted to have the panel on the stage. Over to you, Abhijit, sir.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Arnab, and great starting by Ian. I think the last bit, the last two slides were really interesting. I thought that how you have brought in multiple stakeholders within the ecosystem, ServiceNow, small parties, and Red Hat being, of course, the anchor, and how you created this whole AI-led automation going forward. I think, but given this topic, right, maybe if we take a step back and MJ, if I could come to you to get this started, right? Data science has always been there in the operator side, right? And they have gradually evolving it for improving their network performance, customer experience, etc. Could you throw some light around how operators have leveraged the data that they have, and how it is now getting or supporting the AI models going forward in the future? Okay.
Thanks to Ian, because he almost stole our thunder, because his presentation had everything. So I was going to say, please refer to Ian's slide.
Exactly, because we probably are starting maybe a step behind now, given that he has given so much of insight.
Yeah. I think, see, the management of network or the network operations, as we know, has taken a radical shift, which is highly influenced by AI and ML. In the past, we have been trying to solve network issues where the downtime was in the order of hours, or to some extent it is days, right?
Yeah.
And of course, there was some kind of an automation we have done in the past, but that is predominantly deterministic. When I say deterministic, it is more rule-based, right? And that has led to some changes. But now, it's almost unheard of having a one-day outage or even a few hours of outage. This completely, shift. And this is where I think the AI ML, driven by the data, have given us certain benefits, which is basically reduce the network downtime to minutes. And it also has improved the network performance as well. But if you take a step back and if you look into when telco started adopting AI and ML, we were very skeptical. I mean, as we all know, telco is a very orthodox industry of adoption of new technologies, unlike other industries. So we were very skeptical about what ML can offer, and we were very skeptical about what outcome we may have. Will we have more false positives, false negatives, and we were worried to even take a step there. But we took a gradual step, building offline ML applications, not online, offline ML applications. What I mean by that is, it is not on the pipeline of your network delivery, right? Where we started exploring simplistic models, supervised learning models, where we started getting the data and we started finding outliers or the anomalies in the network. That is more reactive. So we got some confidence based on that, right? Then we graduated. We graduated moving towards more a proactive maintenance. And that is where I think we started exploring the KPI degradation prediction, right? And doing a root cause analysis on top of it, right? And also using those things to arrive to a fix or a solution so that we can avoid the network failure or reduce the downtime into order of minutes, right? So these kind of solutions we already have in our 5G network, to some extent in our 4G networks as well, right? And where it has been deployed predominantly for network operations, but in some cases, these have become a feature in the telco network functions and also the applications, which is giving us great benefits, including improved network performance. But now we are talking about autonomous network. We are expecting the network to completely self-operate, self-heal, self-protect and self-optimize as well. And this is what we call it as intent-driven autonomous network, which means we give a declarative intent and the network takes care of itself based on the declarative intent. And this is predominantly driven by the greatest and latest of AI technologies such as machine reasoning, multi-agent reinforcement learning, then the digital twin, which is basically a causally driven digital twin where we want to deploy certain things in the digital twin to experience how it is before we can deploy in the network. And the new toy in town, everybody likes, the Gen AI, right? So telco has come a long way in the adoption. Even though it is a very traditional industry, it has come a long way in the adoption of AI ML into the network operation predominantly, but still a lot more to do in this to fully harness the potential of these AI ML technologies. But I'm confident that the kind of pace, the kind of objectives that we have, we will be able to achieve autonomous network in the near future.
Yeah, no, great insights. And I think one of the factors that's going to drive the AI adoption in the network space is also the type of applications that the networks will be required to support going forward. And that is an interesting topic altogether, right? But even in the current sphere of things and how we see the telcos evolving, maybe Vikas, if I could come to you and your thoughts around how AI has evolved so far, and more importantly, in the future, as I said, the applications that telco networks will be required to support itself are going to evolve 5G and beyond now. What's your thoughts around how AI will be able to support them in that era?
Yeah. Thanks, Abhijit. So much of the thrill is already stolen by Jan. But let me take a clue from both of these discussions which have already taken place. So we'll just reflect back, as Prasad rightly said, that traditionally, if you look at network, the network were not designed for AI. I mean, companies or the operators have been doing multiple generation of deployment. They've been doing certain acquisition. So our network were not really designed that AI will come and then the data should be ready for AI to adopt or something. So the way we were operating is more like driven by rules, as you rightly said, and those rules were primarily focused on the fault duration, the typical categories of the fault, all of those. Now, AI definitely has taken a leap in terms of associating those fault with the services, with the network performance, that how each and every fault can really impact network KPIs, the performance KPIs, or it can impact the end user experience. But things are not so easy there. As the network is becoming far more complex, and then just to get the attention on the complexity side, let me take an example of RAN. Is a multidimensional complexity which exists in the wireless network. The first level of the complexity is the stochastic nature of the RAN network itself. So you have radio propagation happening, you have user mobility, and then the traffic demand, all of this. Now, among all of this complexity, finding a KPI correlation with the fault, or a fault correlating to KPI or a root cause, is very, very difficult. Now, the second level of the complexity exists because of the network topology. And that network topology, again, come into existence because of heterogeneity of the network. And you will find that many times the KPI performance or the service parameter performance is totally influenced by how the networks are configured, how the peripheral networking is there, how this is running, and all of that. Now, the third level of complexity is because of the user, that how the user segmentation is. So some of the users in a particular place might be demanding more data. Some of the users at particular place might be demanding more of voice, or so that also influence the performance of the network. Now, the last complexity I just want to bring to everyone's attention is about the non-RAN or the non-wireless network or the non-network related fault, which can be related to power, which can be related to environment, all of that. So what you will find that the whole wireless network ecosystem is a convoluted network where the faults or a typical network performance is not only influenced by the variables which are there in the devices or in the complete configuration, but many other factors. Now, AI is something which has completely bridged that gap. Controlling these kind of variables by a human operator or a human engineer in a day-to-day performance monitoring of the network is very, very difficult. Everyone knows it. And I completely, agree with the fact which Prasad has brought in. That is the reason that in the earlier time, any fault restoration or if fault diagnosis was taking days or something, and which is, now the quest is that how do we bring it to the few hours or few minutes or maybe self automation. And so things are still evolving there. But yes, AI has a lot of potential in terms of catering those gaps which were existing earlier. And as the network become far more complex with 5G or 6G IoT edge computing, I mean, it is a certain belief that humans cannot really address all of that complexity, and hence AI has to be there, and that is how the revolution is happening.
Yeah, no, a great insight. And if one thread that I could pick up, and I thought it's so apt, is the networks have become, as you said, more complex, heterogeneous, right? And it's set to get again even more complexity going forward as we go 5G and beyond and all of that. And therefore, the maintenance of that various aspects in the network to make sure that the service quality is maintained is becoming even more important. So, Digvijay, if I could come to you around some thoughts of how the operators can leverage AI in such kind of scenarios where now the networks are going to get increasingly more complex, right? And what role do you think? And Vikas already mentioned it has reached already a level wherein human intervention alone is not sufficient, and we already see some kind of automation. But going forward, it's going to be even more complex.
Right.
So, how do you think AI would play a role in this evolving future?
I think in many ways, and it could be in ways what we can't even envisage today. Like any advent of any new technology, any new generation of technology comes in, there is only so much that we envisage, and so many new things that come up once that technology is in force and is acting. But largely, if you look at, I foresee AI to solve the problems which are complex in nature, which would take a lot of compute, a lot of analysis, a lot of data points to be brought in together and come up with the solutions faster. And those could be many. Like if you take example of silent failures, right? Silent failures. If
Very
you have a
true.
problem, the alarm pops up. You can go and fix it.
Yeah, no, very valid point, and I think I can relate to one of the examples that you said, the silent, alarms, and what catastrophic impact it can have on the network if you don't address. I was actually in a knock in one of the major operators, and at 11 o'clock in the morning, suddenly one site went down and took 20 sites along with it. And when they realized the root cause analysis, they found that there was a power surge alarm coming in one of the racks for the last 8 days. So it will come for 2 hours or maybe 1 hour and it will go. So nobody was paying attention to it. And one fine day, the whole power supply gone, and then with that, the outage happened. So this is very, very critical, factor that you said. And you also touched upon one good point, which gives us a segue to the next point around how to effectively integrate this AI in the network space, right? And you gave this example around what is happening in the data center and stuff like that. And if you see in the internet domain, and maybe Ian, if I could come to you because you come from that side as well, there are a lot of initiatives that are already being done by many players, and in fact, internet more or less operates in an autonomous way anyways. So what inspiration do you think that the telco operations can take from that space to bring in AI into the network ops?
Well, I think as MJ and Vikas have already kind of spoken about, we've come from a world where we're using sort of off-board control plane technologies, right? Whether it's in optical or routing, whatever, to kind of automatically do this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we've got to sort of take that same approach to the control plane of things to solve for that in the mobile network. But the other thing that's actually, because of this complexity of the high volume of data that we've all talked about, there's actually a human element we have to kind of deal with as well here. And what we need to do in order to actually properly deal with this, because there's so much data to deal with, and many of our customers are doing this already, they're taking their data scientist experts who understand how to go build models and tune those kind of things, and they're connecting them with the subject matter experts on the network side to go figure out how they would go build and tune a model to solve that problem. And this is how we kind of get to the bottom of it. And actually, I had a customer a while back, and something that we all kind of tend to forget about just happens all the time, and we're doing it all day long. So they built and they put a virtualized version of it, so it's not a physical one. So they're ISAM, right? In other words, it's a secure access. So when you actually go log on to to your mobile network, right, they authenticate you, right? So they've got racks and racks and racks of these, subscriber access management. And he was automating the configuration, just as I was showing how we do it, right? But then what he wanted to do was he said, well, I want to predict when this thing might die, because this thing's got to run 7/24, zero downtime. So I know that I can actually pull a server blade out, pull a power supply out, ahead of time, right? So these are the kind of things that you have to kind of think through, that every sort of aspect of how a customer interacts with us, not just the network pieces, the subscriber access management, how you get secured, but how they go buy things off your website, right? I've had a customer that got very upset, when Digivay was talking about the data center side. They got really upset when they made a configuration change, operator error, and it took 10 minutes to recover from it. 10-minute outage, they were extremely upset about it. Okay? So these are the kind of things that we need to spend the time with the humans, right? Bringing data science and networking experts together to solve for that, so that we're not wasting lots and lots of horsepower with GPUs and AI, data centers full of stuff to go figure out what to do with the network, right? We've got to fine tune this with smaller models that fit the problem, right? So that's how we kind of go solve for this, both in the control plane side as well as the whole back-end OSS BSS side of the house.
Yeah, no, great. I think one cue that, if I can take from the points that you were mentioning around, is if there is something that goes wrong, then how do we fix it quickly? Even 10 minutes is an eternity these days, and it's going to go even aggressive going forward. So therefore, the integration of these AI in the network ops space becomes critical. And Vikas, you must be thinking about it day in and day out in your day-to-day job, about how to effectively integrate current models in the current space as well as going in the future, right? So maybe your thoughts around how to effectively integrate these AI models as we know currently, as well as going forward in the future, what can be done so that you could have seamless integration ecosystems being in place, so that when the network workloads demand certain network quality, you're not found at wanting of that, right? You are ready to support with that kind of network quality.
Yeah, sure. So let me break the current situation, with the legacy one, because we already have heterogeneity of the network in place, and then the latest, generation of the network which is being added into our infrastructure. So if you go to legacy side, now one of the most challenging point, as I earlier said, is that the network was not designed that tomorrow AI will come and then you will start using the data for multiple purpose or for fault resolution or for any demand forecasting, all of that. So we really, quite a lot of companies really struggle onto that part, that how do we really make the existing data for our future intelligence. Now, to make that, there are 3-4 steps one need to be, keep in mind. And the first and foremost is that the data itself is the foundation layer for AI. So how do we bring the data from the multiple devices or multiple configurations? So that should be the focal point for any operator or any company when you try to adopt or you try to integrate AI into the system. Now the effort can be more about creating a common data framework, having a complete policy governance across the data, because nowadays data has multiple impact. When you bring the data, it has vulnerability for security. It has a lot of compliance issue from a regulation point of view in the multiple part of the world. So data becomes that, how do you define your data strategy becomes the first and foremost step. The second thing, and that is from my own experience, is that the cultural shift. See, when you start pulling the data, you will find that a lot of silos are there in the organization. People are holding the data, systems are holding the data. So how do we really change that culture where each one of us start thinking everything in data? So for example, if I put up an article and put it there, that is data. And then how do I start thinking, or within the organization, people start thinking that how can we use the data for analytics and automation. So there is a huge cultural shift which is needed. And why I'm bringing this point up first is that that becomes the softer aspect of any integration or any transformation becomes the most critical one. The third is that leveraging partnership. Whenever companies, AI adoption also depends on the kind of companies you're trying to get into this space. So if the larger companies are there, they have larger budget, but the smaller companies or the mid-tier companies, they need to really look forward that how they can find partners who are more into the technology space, compute, storage, than some partners who have already ready to use technology solution, which can help in legacy integration, which can help in the current generation of the network integration into the AI. Now, the last point would be more about the cost, and for most of the companies, it comes first. But I'm intendedly bringing it last. The reason is that don't think that you need huge cost for AI. You certainly need if you do a big overhaul. But if companies try to start small, then it creates a business case on its own. So any small success creates a business case in its own, in its own to get a larger implementation for AI, and that is how you go for AI integration into the current generation of the network or network operations, or maybe the legacy one. For the future, whatever you deploy, and right now the technology is ready for that. That the AI ready data should be there, whatever you deploy in your network, and from the day one, probably you can have multiple use cases running AI, and then getting those insights, automation. So for future, I believe the only challenge will be that how the future and legacy get integrated. But future in its own will certainly have AI component, and many of us need to really reskill to operate the future generation of the network. That would be the ultimate requirement. Yeah.
Yeah. No, great insights. I think the ecosystem play, because not one organization or one company will be able to do everything end to end. The start small and grow, because you have the investments to look out for as well. So those are a couple of really great points there. And taking that thought forward, you spoke about the things around integration, but equally important is how do you scale, right? And scaling the AI operations is completely another game, and there are a lot of factors to consider for. And JR, if I can come to you, because you must be thinking about this day in and day out in your customer engagements as well. What are some of the factors that, and again, telcos of today as well as in the future, 5G and beyond, need to consider while scaling up AI in their operations space? And not only in telco network operations, but as Ian mentioned, the holistic approach, that even customer management, customer experience. What are the key success factors that you think are important, or the factors to look out for that effective scaling of AI in the telco space?
Thank you. Yeah, so we're working closely with our customers at Infinera to sort of figure out what we can do today and what value we can provide in terms of AI and scalability within the network. And for quite some time, I think you'll hear the consistent message around the panel is that the biggest challenge has been high quality data, understanding what data can we extract, how can we run the models or train the models, and then what actions can we do that will provide real, I would say, real solutions at scale to both our customers and, of course, their end customers. And I think some of the challenges we're going to have in the scalability side is many of my customers have 10 or 15 years old equipment still in the network.
Yeah.
So you'll hear a common theme around legacy networks or legacy devices. I think also there's still a little bit of a push and pull between purely open interfaces and open networking versus proprietary solutions. Because I think the value and the admiration for some of these short-term successes are certainly more achievable with a proprietary system. The scalability is not there with those systems, regardless of what layer of the stack you're on. So for us, we're focusing very much on staying open, staying very standards-based where possible, and working together with across a bunch of different vendors to make sure that we avoid what we call an AI penalty by making short-term gains with proprietary solutions versus long-term, open, and scalable AI solutions that actually help our customers and end customers. I also think a part of the scalability, and Vikas just mentioned this as well, is one of the biggest challenges we've had is talking to the C-level, the CFO type of folks that are looking at the P&L. And I think right now we have this beautiful vision of what this can become at scale. And I know we can get there, but there's this constant concern of how much do I have to spend today and how long will it take before I can achieve AI and autonomous networking at scale. And that's an answer that I think we're all going to have to work together to get to, because it's not clear to me. We can focus on layer 0, layer 1. As you move up the stack and provide real services to real customers, that's where I think we need massive collaboration within the industry. And we need to just remain open and sharing to do the best thing for our service provider customers.
Yeah, great. And I think the business case impact, as you said, is equally critical. And it depends, the more heterogeneous networks, as you mentioned, becomes, the more complex it gets, and therefore, the value that AI will drive will also be incrementally more. I think taking one step to the next step rather is this AI and SDN discussion. And I think, Ian, you are somebody who lives and breathes in this space, so I don't need to even probably ask you a question. So but I'll just give maybe a pointer for you to speak about how AI is driving the autonomous deployments, optimization, performance, etc. in a SDN space. What's your thought around it, and how it's supposed to evolve, more importantly?
Yeah, so thanks, Abhijit. So the land of SDN has evolved, significantly over the course of time, because we've had it actually in transport networks and router networks for some time, and we're actually not there yet in the mobile network. We haven't got, what's known as the RIC, which is intelligent controller for the RIC yet, to allow us to do some interesting things. But regardless of, kind of how those things evolve for the mobile network, it's still really about enabling you to drive for that outcome you're trying to get to, which is an autonomous, secure kind of approach to it. And one of the things that we kind of have to take into account that's somewhat complicated to go do, and even more complicated in the land of telco. And this is kind of a bit of a challenge for the industry, is that in many other industries, they develop their own applications, in financial sector, in healthcare, whatever, right? But in the telco space, they consume applications from a third party. My partners on the panel here from Ericsson and Nokia and wherever, right? And what we need to be able to do is to develop the AI model and tune it, and then apply it to the application for which I'm running on my platform. And I need to apply that, becomes now a different partnership problem for as to how do I apply that into an application that I'm just consuming because I don't own it, right? So this is going to be another interesting challenge of how we evolve the AI application tuned to a model mapped to a application I got from somebody else. And same thing applies in the OSS BSS, right? Yeah. Same kind of thing. They consume the application and tune it, right? So this is another angle that, when we go look at this, this really does become an app dev reintegration kind of model, since we try to uplift it all into the cloud, right? So this is, but some of the stuff, as JR was saying, is still physical, right? Not going to get virtualized or containerized anytime soon. We can't virtualize, fiber optics that I know of anytime soon. It's not going to happen. So we need to kind of take those things into account and apply it in kind of a very pragmatic fashion to pick, I think it was very good what Vika said with going, small. And the other thing that the operators are doing, which is really quite interesting, is they're actually seeing a lot of gain on the business side, right? They can actually, get the ROI for solving this problem, even if that problem is to make it easier for the techs who are operating the network to resolve a problem, right? That's just applying a customer self-service problem to that side of the house. And what some of them are actually even going to the point of doing is they're saying, well, why don't I use my application intelligence to go decide which of these use cases and projects are going to bring me the biggest bang for the buck, right? So that's the other thing. And some of them are actually creating what's known as an AI board across their entire organizations, right? So they can actually, centralize how we decide to deploy AI in every aspect of the business over time, right? And so we're going to solve some of that in this intelligent SDN kind of space to, automate and, self-heal things. But there's many other aspects. I think we talked about power and other factors that are not in the network, and just the whole human interface with the company, right? When I call in and how do I get to the right guy, these things have more impact sometimes than the outages. So it's the true game that we're after, right? I think Gartner came up with the term, I'm not sure how long ago. It's called hyperautomation, and that's applying automation to every aspect of the business, right? And then if the hammer fits, right, apply AI to that problem too, right? Give it a brain. So that's how I see it evolving.
Right. No, great. I think you touched upon one interesting point about tuning the AI by taking the data, and we all know that the AI models leverage the underneath the data that we feed in to tune themselves, and then later on start giving us the intelligent insights. But the moment you talk about data, then we get into regulatory concerns, data privacy, ethical considerations, etc. So maybe I'll bring JR, you and then following maybe MJ as well, because you both work with the customer and also on the data side, right? What are some of the considerations that we need to keep in mind while we introduce AI in the network space? And again, not only network ops, but the holistic, like Ian said, even customer care management, etc. Because everything is going to be built on top of the data, and network generates lots of data, be it CDRs, be it customer calls, be it call drop records, be it various KPIs that we have in the network, etc. What are the considerations that we need to keep in mind when we leverage this data to build or tune AI for improved network performance or new use cases that we are going to deploy? And this is going to be even complex when it comes to IoT space, where the data generated by various sensors and automated, end devices would be 10 times more than, maybe even more than 10 times than what users are generating. So some of your thoughts around the factors that we need to consider or take into account while leveraging that data. So what are the ethical concerns, regulatory concerns, data protections, etc.? Yeah, maybe. If you can start.
Yeah,
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, so from a privacy perspective, I mean, everything we're collecting today and everything I think we need to collect in the future will be, clearly made anonymous. But what we think about a lot is our customers' network performance, let's call it hotspots, and potential challenges. It's some of the most important data to protect for our customers. And when we think through that, we want to use a model that's open and extensible, and AI that's open and extensible to other customers, while maintaining that network privacy, both to do the right thing and to meet regulatory requirements. So that's front in mind, and really that starts, I think, with a very, very well thought out basis and framework before you head down this path. Because we all are at different areas in this AI journey. And I think starting with these fundamentals, privacy by design, security by design, that's the part that I think we can control. And then the regulatory portion, I think, MJ and I were talking about it earlier, could get really out of hand for us to be innovative and fast. If every country has a different regulatory structure, it's going to really impede the ability to innovate here. And that's something that kind of keeps me awake, wondering how we're going to settle on this globally. But for us, we think with the right framework, it's very possible to keep data private and within anonymous, private, and inside our customers' AI infrastructure.
Yeah, I think yesterday PM in his inaugural speech, I think touched upon this, that no single nation can actually create security and privacy guidelines. And if you, as you said, if you have silos and everybody having their own, then again it becomes an impeding factor in terms of adoption of AI, because essentially it leverages data. So I think one thought that came out yesterday, and I think coming out today as well, is that there has to be some unified approach for data protection, data security standards, so that the players who are developing the solutions then can actually work on a common ground, right? I think that's really important. Maybe because taking this thread forward, right? So, oh, you don't. Oh, I'm just sorry, I missed. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's what happens when you have two people. You miss the second one.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. I
apologies.
think, it's the panel discussion is kind of becoming like writing in a university exam, because you have to remember all those points. You want to convey that. And I was thinking to use the mobile phone to remember my points, but I'm not sure. But then I saw my senior colleague doing it. So I thought, why not? And, I think I was talking to JR. I mean, just on a lighter note, I was talking to JR before the panel discussion. Like, look at Ian. He's having red shoes, his shirt, and, his little badge on, red hat. Like, that should be a cap on your head, actually. So he's not only making a technology statement, he's making a fashion statement here. Anyways, coming back to the topic. Yeah. So full autonomy always comes with challenges, right? Governance of AI-based system is paramount, or AI-based autonomous system is paramount, because it should not go haywire, right? So some challenges that we need to address in this area are data and model, in the sense that, as data poisoning, for example, you might have heard about data poisoning, model inversion, right? Data poisoning and model inversion are also kind of a cyber attack. Data poisoning is meaning you maliciously compromise the training data, which could lead to, let's say, bias or influencing the output of ML model. And on the other hand, model inversion is again a kind of an attack, which will reverse engineer your ML model, and it could derive information out of it. Not only derive information, but it also can get the model parameters, using which you could reconstruct the model, right? And this is where it is important to have a proper governance process, and it should be built-in process. And this should come as part of ML ops, or specifically ML SecOps. I mean, I'm sure you must have heard about these terms, ML ops and ML SecOps, right? Where it is, we need to enable model monitoring, drift detection, model explainability, and to some extent, adversarial hardening as well of ML models. It's very important on all these things, right? In essence, you have to secure the entire ML pipeline, so that, we can avoid these kind of security impacts that we are foreseeing, right? But as we all know, I think JR touched upon it as well. The regulations, there are a lot of regulations put forward by different countries, and EU has come up with its own regulations with 7 key principles. I mean, we should be mindful that we should have a uniform regulation, not specific regulations, as JR mentioned. But implementing some of those regulations is also very important. Those 7 key principles that is being put forward by EU, right? So where trustworthiness is very important, right? And on trustworthiness is not a one-time activity. You can build ML systems that are trustworthy, but you have to continuously monitor to see whether it is operating as trustworthy, meaning you have to intercept these ML systems on a frequent basis to see whether it is operating as expected. And the interception could be something similar to we had in the past, like lawful intercept, right? Lawful intercept more from a policing point of view. But we should have something like a trustworthy intercept to make sure these ML models are not compromised by any chance. And just to touch the point on what JR mentioned, right? Although regulations are important, right? It should not adhere, or these regulations, adhering is important. It should not restrict or hinder our innovations or the development of these use cases. So one such thing is the cross-border data sharing, right? It is important for a global and inclusive AI, right? And the data sharing is a crucial part of innovation, because if you see a CSP's data or the behavior of the customer in one country will be different from the behavior of the subscriber in a different country with a different CSP. And if we have to build a model, right, all the R&D units, all the vendors are building models based on synthetic data, but it's not necessarily going to work when you put in production, because with synthetic data, you can go only so far, right? We need the real data. We need the edge cases. And if we don't enable this data sharing, I mean, I'm not saying, raw data needs to be shared, but in a meaningful, it has to be shared. Like, for example, model parameters, etc. Then we'll will end up creating multiple models that may not be relevant and will cannot get the benefit of the global aspect of it. So it is very important from that aspect. But and also the important aspect is, right, miscommunication has resulted in numerous challenges among humans, and we don't want that to happen with AI systems. We have to make sure that AI systems operate harmoniously and also ethically as well, where it is essential for the system to be built with ethical standards and communicate in a clear and a concise and an expected manner.
Yeah, no, great insight. And I clearly see that you've done a lot of homework because so much of thoughts.
No, I'm not going to make any comments about MJ and the fashion. I'm glad you mentioned it. But one of the things I wanted to put a shout out for that people may not be aware of, but about 2 or 3 years ago, we created a global community known as the Enterprise Neurosystem, and that's a collection of industry, academia, and it's all industries, right? And the goal is to actually come up with a way to build a federated data model and how we actually do ethical responsible AI around the world for climate change, medical research, all these different things together. So this is a community of interest that is working, as we know, for the last few years to head down that path to a common way to look at this problem and solve it in a consistent way around the globe. So that is in play as we speak for the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, that could be probably a way forward if we have a common body leveraging data across multiple operators and making sure that we are not sharing those aspects which are country specific or has some
well, and we do have some operators that have joined that neurosystem already.
Oh, excellent. That could be a way forward then in that. But so we spoke about the considerations, the data privacy, the regulations or the lack of it, which we need to kind of address. But in all the midst of this, the journey of adoption of AI in the network continues, right? And because your thoughts around, in the current scheme of things, as we have today, we are not in the perfect world when it comes to regulations and all, but how do we effectively integrate in the current scheme of things and going forward when the networks evolve 5G and beyond, how to continue that journey, hoping at some point in time that the regulations will also be, and some of the aspect that Ian said, that we could have a common forum with participation of multiple operators, which will simplify the things. But as of now, how do you see this?
So I believe in future the challenge is going to be two-way. One is that on 5G and 6G we see that some of the mission critical applications running on those network. At the same time, we are saying that the network has to be run by AI. So mission critical applications are being run by AI, and the network where the mission critical applications are running, that itself is being run by AI. So anything which goes wrong, you can see the repercussion where it goes. So the point is that we, at least on the network layer, because we are not really controlling the application part, that is completely left to the enterprise, that how do they want to run the use cases or their application on the mission critical applications. But coming to the network, and I completely with Prasad, that we need to create a framework where complete integration of your the continuous integration, continuous development, continuous training of the data, which keep happening for multiple use cases within the network, and then there is a complete regulation, complete governance on this AI model which is governing the network. So definitely there are a lot of things which are happening. So AI ops is there when people are talking, and then SAC ops he's brought in. But in my view, things are still evolving because we are not still there that where multiple mission critical things are running. But yes, certainly there is a vision. So there is a evolution phase. There is a standard which are being defined about all of this. But yes, the AI for AI or running the AI ops or the AI into the network, we need a larger AI framework to control or govern it, and that's where industry is moving towards.
We're slightly running short of time, so maybe one final point, and I want all of you to chip in for maybe a minute or so around the future of AI. JR, your thoughts around how it is set to evolve in the future, some outlook as you see from your client engagements.
Yeah, so I mean, we're really excited about this tool, and it almost made me laugh earlier because we talked about SDN. And I remember when we first heard about SDN, and it was like, this is never going to really happen. We're never going to get to automation. And then I feel like in the last 5 years, we've gone from reliable, helpful, ROI-worthy automation to now we're already through SDN and orchestration, all the way now talking about what's next that does feel real. And it feels like we're going to be able to provide this to our customers, very quickly. And in fact, Ian on his slide earlier had sort of the sort of business use cases, and we already see a lot of value in what we call Infinera Virtual Assistant, helping NOC and other personnel quickly troubleshoot or make network decisions with that extra layer of confidence. And so we believe some of it's here today. We're really excited about what's coming. We're completely focused on being open and collaborative with everybody. And so we think we're on a great path, and we're excited for the future.
Great. Digvijay, your thoughts?
So there are no two thoughts about whether AI is going to happen or not. In my humble opinion, it's there today. Like if you talk about today's networks, they are self-healing already, right? The control plane, which exists in smallest of the devices. So automation, intelligence into the networks is way to go. There are no two thoughts about it. I think the way to make it faster, we have to ensure that certain things are falling in place. Data integrity, as Prasad and Vikas spoke about. The other thing is that the approach should not be siloed. It should be more holistic in nature. It cannot be just one specific thing, whether it is monitoring, whether it's performance. It has to be holistic network together so that we make it faster. Open systems, as my friend JR spoke about, so that there are lesser barriers. With those things, I think it's here to come. It's already here, and that's my thoughts.
Thanks.
For the future, in the interest of time, I would just say that for the future, just change the mindset. For the AI, it's everywhere, it's in everything, it's at your home, it's in network, it's everywhere. So I believe the larger thing is about changing, reskilling ourselves, changing the culture, changing the mindset.
Yeah.
Just
So critical.
yeah.
MJ and Ian as well.
So we have evolved from how we create products, right? Appliance-based products, cost hardware-based products. Then we move to virtualization. Then we are currently in cloud native, right? And what I see is there is a transformation sitting in the corner to happen, which I call it as a AI native transformation. So far, what we are building as AI capabilities are bolted on top of the existing solution. But the future of AI is going to be AI natively available in every single products or every single part of the network, including starting from the devices until the delivery. And that is the transformation that will enable us to provide the capabilities that we are looking for in the future networks such as 6G.
Thanks. A lot of good points here, and we sort of talked about the need for the data and AI platform to be expressed for all the things that are possible. And I think what's really important is that, yes, AI is one of the things we need to kind of take advantage of and apply it, diligently and properly. But it needs to be tied to other technologies to solve what we want. Because what we haven't really talked about is that, for the operators to really kind of take advantage of AI, we talked about the business use cases. That's for themselves. Now they can go sell that, virtual assistant to somebody else. So that's, something that's sold to an enterprise. Then we look about the efficiencies, the sustainability on the network side. Wonderful stuff. Well, what if I actually want to go solve a business problem for my enterprise? So now I'm going to kind of reach to the very top for them. I've got to take these technologies, AI, things like all-photonic networks, things like software-defined memory, these technologies combined with AI, so it can actually go drive better business outcomes for better healthcare, better agriculture. For me, I like wine, so better wine. These things are, important to me. So everybody's going to want to have this outcome-driven thing where we translate all this network KPI stuff we talk about, right, to the actual outcome of the end business, which has nothing to do with latency and speed and all that fun stuff, right? It's really about quality of service that enriches our lives.
We're slightly beyond our time, so we would have loved to take the questions, but I think we'll have to stop here because I'm already getting indications from the organizers. But I really would like to express my thanks to all the panelists. Thank you for your time and really great insights on this topic of interest. I think everybody talks about AI, and network should not be any different. But thank you very much for your time and appreciate your thoughts. With that, we will end here. Thank you.